Something was different today. The forest was not the same one Lira and Kael had entered yesterday. The air, usually thick with the earthy smell of damp soil and decaying leaves, now hummed with a strange energy. It was like walking into a room just after a lightning strike, where the very atoms felt charged and alive. Lira paused, her hand resting on the bark of an ancient banyan tree. The bark felt warm, almost like it had a pulse beating slowly beneath her fingertips. She looked at Kael, whose eyes were wide, scanning the canopy above. He felt it too. This wasn't just a collection of trees and plants anymore, it was a single, breathing entity, and they were walking through its veins. This feeling had started after they met the remnant. The creature had been a fleeting shadow, a whisper of movement at the edge of their vision. It wasn't scary, not really. It felt more like a guardian, a lonely sentinel watching over its domain. But its presence had left a mark. Kael found he could understand the rustling of the leaves, not as words, but as feelings. A ripple of curiosity here, a wave of ancient sadness there. Lira, on the other hand, felt a pull in her heart, a strange connection to the forest's core. It was as if a string, invisible and unbreakable, now tied her soul to this mysterious place. They were changing, slowly but surely. The forest itself seemed to respond to their newfound awareness. The light filtering through the leaves danced in patterns that almost looked like symbols, shifting and reforming with every step they took. The birdsong was no longer a random chorus, it was a melody with a purpose, guiding them deeper into the woods. Lira noticed that the path ahead seemed to clear itself, with thorny bushes retracting their branches and fallen logs seeming less of an obstacle. It was unsettling, but not in a bad way. It felt like an invitation, a welcome into a secret world that had been waiting for them, and only them, for a very long time. Kael stopped and pointed upwards. A vine, thick as his arm, had twisted itself into a perfect spiral pointing west. It hadn't been like that a moment ago. He was sure of it. "Did you see that?" he whispered, his voice barely disturbing the charged silence. Lira just nodded, her gaze fixed on the path ahead. The forest was communicating, using its own language of light, sound, and life. They didn't feel threatened, they felt chosen. They were being led somewhere important, and for now, all they could do was trust the strange, living magic that surrounded them and follow where it led. As twilight painted the sky in shades of purple and orange, the forest sounds grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't just the chirping of crickets or the hooting of an owl, it was something more. Lira sat by their small campfire, listening intently. Hidden within the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft sigh of the wind, she heard a voice. It was a whisper, a soft melodic sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It spoke a name, over and over again. Liwena. The name felt familiar, like a half-remembered song from a dream, and it sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the evening chill. Later that night, huddled in their bedrolls, Lira couldn't keep it to herself any longer. "Kael," she began, her voice low, "did you hear it? A name in the wind." Before she could say it, Kael finished her sentence. "Liwena," he said, his eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. He had heard it too. The name echoed in his mind, stirring memories that weren't his own. The revelation hung in the air between them, a shared mystery that bound them even closer. The forest wasn't just watching them, it was speaking to them, calling a name from a forgotten past. The strangest part was yet to come. As they shared their experiences, they discovered an even deeper connection. Both of them had been having the same dream for weeks. In the dream, they saw a woman named Liwena. She was always standing in a moonlit clearing, her face obscured by shadows, holding a beautiful lantern that glowed with a soft, ethereal light. And in the dream, they were there with her. Lira remembered holding a lantern of her own, its light a brilliant blue. Kael recalled a lantern that shone with the warmth of an amber flame. The memories were hazy, like looking through frosted glass, but the feeling was strong. What if this isn't our story? Lira wondered aloud, pulling her blanket tighter. What if we're just repeating it? The thought was both terrifying and exciting. Were they just actors in a play written long ago? Were their feelings, their choices their own? Or were they being guided by the ghosts of Liwena and someone else, following a path already walked? They didn't have any answers. All they knew was that the forest, the remnant, and the dreams were all connected. They were part of a story much larger than themselves, and the next chapter was waiting just beyond the morning light. The next morning, they didn't need a path. An instinct, sharp and undeniable, pulled them forward. It was a magnetic force, tugging at the core of their beings, leading them west toward a destination they had never seen but somehow knew. The forest seemed to part for them, the air humming with anticipation. They walked for hours, their steps light and purposeful, until they emerged from the dense trees into a clearing. Before them stood a single, majestic hill, covered not in grass, but in a blanket of rare, pure white flowers. Each petal seemed to glow with an inner light, earning the place its name, the Hill of Fireblossoms. The sight was breathtaking. It was a place of serene beauty, untouched by time. As they climbed the gentle slope, they noticed strange symbols carved into the stones scattered among the flowers. They were the same symbols they had seen in the dancing light of the forest canopy. Kael traced one with his finger. It was a spiral, just like the vine from the day before. The symbols formed a trail, leading them directly to the crest of the hill. There, built into the hillside itself, was a massive stone door, seamlessly sealed, with no handle or hinge in sight. It was ancient, powerful and utterly impenetrable. Lira felt a sudden certainty. She reached for the small lantern that had been her constant companion, a gift from her grandmother. It was a simple thing, made of dark wood and glass, but inside it held a single, teardrop-shaped blue shard that pulsed with a faint light. She had always treasured it, never knowing its true purpose until now. With a steady hand, she approached the stone door. There was a small, star-shaped indentation at its center, a perfect match for the shard. It felt right. This was what she was meant to do. The forest held its breath, waiting. Taking a deep breath, Lira pressed the blue shard from her lantern into the indentation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a low hum vibrated through the ground. Blue light erupted from the shard, tracing glowing lines across the stone door, connecting the ancient symbols. The lines flared brightly, and with a deep grinding sound that echoed across the hill, the massive door began to slide open. It revealed not a dark cave, but a passage filled with a warm, golden light. Their journey had brought them here for a reason. They had unlocked the way, and now they had to step inside. The passage opened into a chamber so vast it felt, well, almost like a star-filled night sky brought underground. The air was thick with the scent of old parchment and ozone, a library of emotions, honestly. All around them, suspended in mid-air, were thousands upon thousands of lanterns. Each one was unique, crafted from different materials, gleaming silver, dark wood, colored glass, and woven reeds. And inside, every single lantern burned a flame, each a different color, each holding a distinct memory or emotion. A fiery red lantern pulsed with rage, a soft pink one glowed with affection, and a deep, sorrowful blue one wept tears of light. It was, an archive of souls, a testament to countless lives. At the very center of this breathtaking spectacle stood a single pedestal. On it rested the first lantern. It was magnificent, crafted from what looked like solidified sunlight, and it shone with a brilliant, pure gold light that illuminated the entire chamber. This was the heart of the forest, the source of all the magic they had felt. It radiated a power that was both immense and gentle, a silent hum of creation and history. Lira and Kael walked slowly towards it, drawn by its incredible light, their own small lanterns feeling like pale imitations in its presence. This was the source of everything. As Lira reached out, a figure materialized from the shadows beside the pedestal. It was the remnant, but no longer a fleeting shape. It was a man, his form solid but translucent, his face etched with a grief so profound it seemed to drink the light from the room. He looked at Lira and Kael, his eyes ancient and full of pain. "You have come," he whispered, his voice like the grinding of stones. "You carry their light." He explained that the lanterns held the memories of all who had been bound to the forest. His story was one of love and loss, of a promise made to a woman named Lywena to protect their memories forever. The remnant's sorrow was a powerful force. As he spoke of his sacrifice, the chamber filled with the weight of his memories. The air grew heavy, and the lanterns around them began to flicker violently. "Love is not a gift," the remnant declared, his voice cracking with agony. "It is a curse, a chain that binds you to sorrow." He had loved Lywena so much that her loss had shattered him, trapping him here as a sorrowful ghost. But Kael stepped forward, his own amber lantern held high. "No," he said, his voice firm. "Love isn't a curse. It's a choice to remember, to cherish, and to let go." The chamber shuddered. Kael's words had challenged the remnant's ancient grief and, well, the conflict of emotions was tearing the place apart. The lanterns flickered wildly, their lights clashing. Some shattered, their memories exploding into frantic, chaotic whispers that swirled around the room like a storm. The remnant cried out, clutching his head as the painful memories overwhelmed him. The ground shook violently, and cracks began to spiderweb across the stone floor. The entire archive of souls was on the verge of collapsing, threatening to be lost forever in a wave of despair and sorrow. All seemed lost. In the midst of the chaos, Lira stood firm. She looked at the grieving remnant, at the shattering memories, and at the golden first lantern pulsing at the center of the storm. She understood now. The past didn't need a warden trapped by sorrow. It needed healing. It needed a new choice. With a courage she didn't know she possessed, she pushed through the swirling vortex of emotions and reached for the first lantern. Her fingers brushed against its warm golden surface. She wasn't trying to take its power, but to offer her own hope, her own choice. The moment she touched it, an explosion of pure white light erupted from the first lantern. It was not a destructive blast, but a wave of profound peace and understanding. The light washed over the entire chamber, silencing the storm and calming the chaotic memories. It flowed into the remnant, and for the first time in centuries, the deep lines of grief on his face softened. A faint, peaceful smile touched his lips as his translucent form began to fade, his duty finally fulfilled, his soul set free. The light healed the past, not by erasing it, but by accepting it. As the light subsided, the chamber was still and quiet. The remaining lanterns burned with a steady, gentle glow. Lira and Kael looked at the first lantern. Its golden surface was no longer blank. 2 new names were now etched into it, glowing softly, Lira and Kael. Their journey, their choice to face the past with courage instead of sorrow, had become a part of the forest's eternal story. They had not repeated the past, they had healed it. Their story, and the powerful choice they made, would now be remembered forever, a beacon of hope for all who would come after.